Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I almost said issue of that early childhood nerd. I'm Heather Burnt Santee. Still shaking a little bit every time Zoom tells me that we're recording. It suddenly just started doing that like a week ago, and it scares me every time. So Dan Hudgens is here. There he is. You heard him laughing.
Yeah.
So thanks, Dan, for being on, and for everybody listening. This is a different kind of thing we're doing. I'm working with an editor. Nothing decided yet, but I'm working with an editor who wants me to work on a book, try a book. And so I've asked several of the co-hosts to help me by sort of recreating the Mike Asks Heather episodes that we do sometimes. So I've asked some of them to listen to a specific episode and then come on and interview me. And the intention is to get me talking and sort of help me flesh out some ideas. So we're all just going to be part of this experiment. I don't know, it feels weirdly egocentric, but Dan and I, we've talked about egocentrism many times.
Yes.
And I don't know why I pretend that I'm not egocentric. So again, thank you, Dan. And Dan, you listened to an episode that Emma and I did called Sticker Charts versus Human Complexity.
Yes.
And I just asked folks who are playing this game with me to listen to episodes and come up with questions or things you'd like to hear me talk more about or explain better. And so I guess we can just go. So we won't have a quote for these episodes. We'll just jump in.
That's fun. Yes.
Okay, I hope so. I hope it's fun.
When I listened to you and Emma about the sticker one, I thought, wow, there's so much that could be done with this topic, because you and I've talked about this before. But what I want to know first, Heather, which is part of my questioning myself, is why do people want quick fixes for behavior? Because both you and I know when we do a presentation, that is one of the most common questions are related to guidance, discipline, behavior issues. Why do you think that people want quick fixes knowing that they're short-lived?
So first I would say, I don't know that everyone always knows they're short-lived. Like I think sometimes from what I've heard people say, they think it's not a problem with the system. It's a problem. This child is just so persistently non-compliant. They think that the sticker chart works because everybody else, it works for all these other kids. But the one who it doesn't work for, they don't say, oh, this is happening again. He's running in the classroom again. There must be an issue with the sticker chart. It must be that sticker charts lead to really short-lived results.
Yes.
I think their minds go to, oh, that kid is just, I just need to try harder with the sticker chart. Or this kid is just especially difficult because the sticker chart's not working. So I guess my first part of that would be, I don't know that everyone thinks of it in terms of, I identify that these results are short.
And that's probably the reason why it's commonly used. Maybe is because they don't view it as short-lived.
Yeah.
In terms of these. And so what they do is they add more stickers, thinking that will solve.
Right. Or up, it's some different prize.
Yes.
Let's make it something that you want more, so that honestly, I don't know that they think specifically, well, this loss isn't devastating enough to change their behavior. I've got to find something that really would be upsetting for them to lose.
Yes.
But I think that's sort of subconsciously where a lot of it is operating. But in terms of why is it so, I guess, why is everyone searching for this answer? That's something that I'm hoping to be able to I don't know. I actually asked it on the Facebook page, the nerd Facebook page
Mhm.
one day, and got
I
lots of
saw
different
that.
answers.
Yes.
And um, I just think the mentality is misbehavior, quote unquote, um, is seen as an interruption of the real learning. And so we feel like we just need to stop it rather than so it's seen as a problem to be solved so that we can get to what's important. And every child who is developing and not fully grown yet has these behaviors that are seen as misbehavior because it's part of growing. So it's prevalent, and so everybody in those spaces feels like I got to get this under control so we can get to the good stuff instead of either understanding or accepting or um, being open to learn that those are just other ways children, have things to learn or need to grow a little bit more to be able to be successful at. Or I just need to change my view of the whole classroom, which is a big ask. It's a bigger ask to say, no, change the way you're thinking about this completely than to say, um, here's a video you can buy from me that if you watch, it will tell your staff everything you need to know, and you won't have these behavior problems anymore. Or here's a new way you can do a sticker chart. Um, I just think we're not quite globally professionally ready to let go of that way of thinking.
I'm wondering sometimes whether or not people think that using behavior chart stickers would prove that I'm a better teacher because I was able to solve, quote, this issue, even
Mhm.
though it might even be short lived.
Yeah.
Because I think people are always trying to prove that they are good at something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what drives a lot of decisions that we've all made. I definitely have thought in those terms in my career as a classroom teacher.
Yes,
But I think that drives a lot of decisions. What do other people think of me? Does this feel like I'm being a teacher? Does my
yes,
classroom look like I've put effort into being a teacher? And you can be just as crafty and decorative with a sticker chart as you can with a bulletin board
yes.
or your classroom door. So for people that that's sort of their personality, that feels teachery.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I'm sure there are teachers pay teachers accounts where you can buy ideas for sticker charts.
Yes, true, true. Is there a point at which stickers and relationships, because that's what you and Emma talked about,
Uh-huh.
are they always in contrast?
Hmm. Um, I think in terms of a discussion about helping kids with their behavior, um, yeah, I think they probably are. I think in terms of just being, having a good time with kids, and you've got a kid who likes stickers, and you're just playing around, and you've got some
Right.
stickers, or there's stickers in the art, on your art shelf or your materials shelf. I certainly wouldn't say you could never give a child a treat. You could never give a child a sticker. But I don't see um, any depth that can be added or built using a sticker chart. It's all about power, and it's all about either making an important person happy or unhappy
Yes,
for a child. And I don't think that there can be relationships formed and strengthened when you have that kind of power imbalance
yes,
and that kind of
yes,
pressure on the least powerful.
yes, yes. I remember feeling guilty now when I was on a long drive with my daughter and I asked her if she could please be quiet just for a little while. And she, of course, couldn't. So
Yeah.
I then said, I'll give you $1 because $1 at that time was a lot of money.
Yes.
She said, I'll take a quarter,
Did she?
so she didn't have to wait so long.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember, that evolution.
Uh-huh.
I'm wondering, going with that, I'm wondering why the behaviors approach, which really started in the 50s,
Mm-hmm.
is still very popular to a lot of people. And so I'm wondering what's so attractive about the behaviors approach.
Yeah.
You have any idea about that?
I just literally yesterday was like, I need to find some stuff to read about behaviorism because I need to think more about this. Um, I think it seems easy. I mean, that's what everyone is
Mm,
looking for. That's why every workshop or every conference you go to has so many workshops about behavior, and every issue of every magazine, every blog post, it's just that's what people are wanting. um and behaviorism, I think, can seem easy and on the surface makes sense, like, well, of course, if we want this behavior, then we should reward it when we see it and take away from when we don't. And it seems logical. It feels right. Plus we have decades of um this idea that um you can't just let kids get away with stuff when they do wrong by whatever standard. We can't just let them get away with it. So there must be some sort of punishment. And so if it makes sense, if it's a given that there must be punishment for bad, then there must be something good for doing right. It just fits our cultural
yes.
mindset and experience, I think. And also it seems like it should work. It feels like it makes sense, um, but if it did, we wouldn't have to keep doing it so much.
Right.
Like
Right.
whenever someone says to me, but rewards work, I say, work to do what? What do you mean? Does that mean you've never seen that behavior again in your classroom? And the answer is never. Yeah, it's completely gone. It's just smooth now. We can finally just focus on the important things all day.
Right.
So I think what they mean is it works for the ones who would probably be doing that anyway, and it doesn't always work for the ones um, who needed more or need something
Right.
different.
You know, people say, well, I've given up the stickers, but I still see from those people, I still see flyers that say 101 ways to say good job. Have you seen
Yes,
that? And
very
from
decorative.
exactly. And so they list things
Yeah,
that you get, but they're still very external, adult
yeah,
controlled
yeah,
statements
yeah,
that so people sometimes think, all right, if I get rid of the stickers,
yeah,
what am I going to replace? They always need a
yeah.
replacement. So they come up with 101 ways to say good job.
Yeah, yeah, because and that feels nice. It feels good. Feels like that, of course, would be a good thing. But as Alfie Kohn says, rewards are just the flip side of a punishment, and neither, for all intents and purposes, neither are different. They're not different from each other. They're both
Yeah,
an external way of trying to control another person's behavior. Um, and I think that's both ineffective and dangerous.
very. Yeah, yeah. How do stickers, because you and Emma did a really good job of talking about, how do stickers imply whether or not a child is good or bad?
To the child or to everyone
Yes, to the child.
else?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, for a child who cares, because there will be some who don't care about the sticker chart and are
that's
just like,
true.
whether they just, they're okay enough that it doesn't matter to them, or it always is, they always get their sticker, so it doesn't matter, or they've just given up trying. Like, I don't know what more I can do for this person. I never get the stickers, so why bother? All sort
Right.
of subconsciously. Um, but I mean, I think that's very much the explicit message. If you get stickers, you're good. If you don't, there's something wrong with you, and it doesn't matter how lovingly I present that to you. The message is always, you have failed. um, you're not as good as the other people on this chart. um, Kids internalize that and start to stigmatize they know which kids don't get the stickers.
Correct.
um, because it's very rarely just a silent chart, right? It's also, um, do I need to take that sticker off your chart, or do you want a sticker today? Because yesterday you didn't get this sticker, and so the whole group's hearing that, and it's not a
Sure.
silent tool sitting on the hanging on the wall. It's a I guess full classroom experience coercion.
Right.
So everyone's aware of who's good and who's bad, even if we don't use the words good and bad.
Yeah, yeah. I remember in elementary school, they would have pizza parties for those children that received A's and B's, but did not invite children who received C's and D's
Yeah,
to have a pizza party. So I keep thinking, what message is that giving? You
yeah,
know, because I'm wondering, kids who get A's and B's are going to get A's and B's in my belief, whether they have a pizza party or not. They're
right.
good at figuring out how to get an A and B.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean they have more knowledge. They just figure out how to get an A and B.
right.
Where if you're a D student and get a C, nobody celebrates that in any way.
And that could have been the hardest working student
Exactly.
that you
Yeah.
found. Yeah. Yeah, so there's two things in that drive me crazy. One is, there's so many reasons that a child might get a C or a D instead of an A or a B, and not letting them have pizza does nothing to address those reasons, and in fact sends an implicit message, I guess, that I'm not willing. The adult's not willing to help you along. Um, because they've already been excluded from, the good thing at the end of it all. Which very much like behavior, if we aren't looking for reasons, or trying to decide whether that's something that's really wrong, or if it's really misbehavior. um, but also, food as a reward instead of stickers is also really
Right.
problematic for me, or troublesome for
Yes.
me.
Yes.
Sends all kinds of crazy messages about food, and who deserves it and who doesn't, and
Right.
uh, using it to make yourself feel better or worse, and um, corporate influences with
Of
pizza,
course.
that
Of
kind of
course. Yes.
listening to children already. So there's a whole other, I think, path to go down there, just about food specifically. But um, in that case, that's, it's very similar to when my kids were in middle school, and if you had perfect attendance, you got to go to a movie or something. And
Right.
I was a parent who, if my kids needed a mental health day, we took a mental health day, and if they were sick, they were sick. There's nothing we could do about it. And so we never had anything close to perfect attendance. So I think one time I took them out of school and we went to a movie by ourselves.
Yes, I
Because
remember doing that.
it just pissed me off.
Yeah. You and Emma talked about negotiation with children. I found that to be really fascinating in your discussion as it related to stickers and that. And
Uh-huh.
I believe you would indicate, I actually wrote it
Yeah.
down, saying that is it so wrong to negotiate with children? I found that to be, can you explain that a little bit more? I think that's
I
an interesting topic.
I hope so. I think where I fall with that is, sticker charts are also very black and white. Either you did it or you didn't. And I think there is a real value to kids saying, no, I don't want to do that right now, or what if I did ... instead, or just letting them have a voice, I think, is what it comes to. Sticker
Sure.
charts, anything that we're doing solely to get a child to comply with us or with our rule or with our whatever, just takes their voice away completely. And there's a real tendency to just be very no means no, and I'm the adult and you're the child, so you do, which is also very dangerous for some children to be in those kinds of environments where you never challenge the adult. But those negotiating skills, that ability to speak up for themselves, which is often seen as talking back or being sassy or being disrespectful, that's one, they have a right, they should have a right to have a voice in what happens to them
Yes.
because they're human. They're in a situation that's probably not voluntary, come into childcare or whatever every day. Um, uh, they're in a system that sort of is not always intentionally, but set up to be very dehumanizing if we're not intentional the other way. So taking away their voice in a way that is either you obeyed or you didn't, don't talk back to me, don't tell me what you want, don't tell me how you feel about this, because that's also misbehavior in your mind, is just so, I think it's heartless, but it's sometimes subconscious. Like, I don't think the teachers are saying, well, today I'm going to take away a kid's voice and it's going to be great. I'm going to really establish my dominance
Right.
today.
Right.
But it's these cultural practices like sticker charts that we don't always give a second thought to. But I think, like when my kids were in elementary school and they didn't have fever and they weren't throwing up, but they told me they didn't want to go to school, I just, if it wasn't a huge deal, they could negotiate that.
Yes.
Uh, we used to, similar to your dollar, I used to tell Curtis I'd give him $1 to take the trash bags out to the dumpster. And then I ran out of dollars because they weren't plentiful. So then I started saying things like, well, this one's just for the good of the family. And so he started, he's 5 or 6 years old. He'd get to the point where he'd say, okay, is this bag for the good of the family or could this be a $1 bag?
Yeah.
So I think it's helpful for relationship building to allow children to negotiate their needs a little bit, or negotiate your system or your process or your schedule a little bit. And if you really just can't, then don't. But when you can, especially in behavior situations, if you can hear what they're trying to say to you, if they're trying to tell you why they did something, why they didn't do something, I think so much more effective to let them be part of that than to just
right.
Peel the sticker off the chart that maybe not only do you not get this sticker, I'm taking that one away too.
Plus, I think everybody's interested in helping children develop problem-solving skills.
We say we are,
And I think negotiation is a way that helps children develop that component.
Right.
It gives some choices that were not designed by the adult. And we know that choices is a way to change behavior in some cases.
Yeah. And I think it's really hard for us to come up with choices that are authentic to children, even if we want to. So you're right. Letting them offer the choice is really a good way to do that.
And I often say I haven't thought about that, which is part of the adult recognizing to the child that they're human in terms of that, and that it's not always adult versus child. It's looking at, let's look at this topic, idea, etc., and see what we can come up with. I think that gives a clear message to children.
I think I've told this story before, but I had a little guy, Gus, who was just one of my favorite 4 and 5-year-olds ever in my preschool. But the system wasn't for him.
Yeah.
And he was very okay saying that. And there was a day when we both were just, we've had it. and
Yes.
he said, I just don't want to be at this school today. And I said, you know what? Neither do I, but we don't have a choice on this.
Yes.
We're both
Yes.
here. We both
Yes.
have to stay. What else what else could we do? Or what would make it um, easier for you to be at this
Yeah.
school today?
Yeah.
And let him negotiate. And that's sort of an extreme example, but he was a master negotiator, and that's what it was all about. It's
Yeah.
just needed
Yeah.
his voice heard.
Yeah, it's a topic that I think that people really need to consider, because negotiating for some people means I give up.
Mm,
And I don't necessarily see negotiation as giving up, but
right.
looking at sharing.
Yeah.
Um,
Just listening,
exactly.
hearing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that that's important to sort of flesh out what we really mean when we're talking about negotiating, so that it
Right.
doesn't sound like, oh, we're just letting them get away with it. Because
Yeah.
if you're someone who feels strongly that kids can't just get away with things, that's going to be really hard for you to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a hard question.
Oh, whew. Okay.
If we're not, because people always want the substitute. If we're going to
Yeah.
take something away,
Yeah.
then what are we going to replace it with?
Yeah.
So we're going to take away stickers and behavior charts and things of that sort.
Uh-huh.
What in your opinion are we going to need to replace it with?
Total attitude change.
Right.
Yes, that's the hard question. It really is. Here's something that came to mind that sort of was flip, but now maybe it's serious, so I want to talk it through. I want to suggest it. But what if adults had a behavior chart for themselves, and every time they paused and said, "What is the child telling me?" or "Is this really misbehavior?" they gave themselves a sticker just for that pause. Even if, like, I think that the next step really is the pause. It's
Okay.
so it's not, the sticker chart has been what we do. No questions, no thoughts, just, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do, so you don't get this sticker, or everybody got their coats on in 5 minutes, so we all get a sticker. That's been such a go-to, um, that I think the easiest, the most accessible next step is just to start asking yourself one or two questions instead. So substituting that for your own behavior, rather than thinking about stickers or no stickers. Give yourself two or three questions that you want to ask when that would be, so like, why, what was my request reasonable? Could be a good question. Um, what is he trying to tell me? What does she need to do better? Start with like those three kinds of things, and just spend a couple weeks doing that and not worrying about compliance or classroom order or your schedule, and starting there. But then you've got to look at, the step after that is the hard one, where you have to sort of relearn. It's not just about obedience or not obeying. It's about development, and is my expectation here appropriate? Can the kids really meet this standard, or this thing that I've got hanging in the air above their head? Is the environment contributing somehow? Can I really stop? Could I just stop what I had planned and focus on this, and still call that teaching, still call that a good morning in my classroom? So I think that's the hard part. So I would say, if you're going to stop the sticker chart, substitute some questions where you would normally be talking about sticker chart, and then think, okay, so what do I need to learn myself to do this better? What more information do I need? I can't do that in a half hour podcast.
Yeah.
That's why there's going to be a whole book.
Right.
I hope. Yeah.
And I think sometimes stickers make judgment
Absolutely.
about how a child or an adult feels about themselves. So part of it is looking, like you indicated, evaluating what message am I sending?
Yeah.
And is that the message I really want to send?
Yeah.
Would be that was the hardest for me.
Mhm.
I'm going to be real honest. It was a real difficult change for me to stop saying good job. I
Yeah.
never really gave out stickers and that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I didn't either.
I personally did not like them,
Yeah.
but I said good job a lot.
Uh-huh.
And when I first heard Alfie Cohen, I thought, what? He wants me to get rid of good job.
Right? It was like a 2-page article in Young Children, I remember 25 years ago or something. That was like the first Alfie Kohn I had ever read. And he's telling me to stop saying good job, which is a staple.
Yes. It
Yeah.
was easy. I felt good when I said it. And that
Yeah.
was the purpose of it. And
Yeah.
when I discovered when he said that, it wasn't anything about the child. It was how I felt
Yeah. Yeah.
when I said good job. And I think sometimes that happens with stickers,
Mm-hmm.
is people feel better when they give something of themselves. And so it became challenging. And I think that's part of what people need to look at is,
Right.
am I making a judgment? And is that the judgment I really want to? I mean, Julie would
Yeah.
yell, look at, I painted a picture. I painted a picture. And I'd go up and say, what a beautiful picture. She didn't ask for an evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted me to see
Yeah.
that she had painted something. And
Or just to share excitement
exactly.
about that. Yeah.
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 And I think, I mean, honestly, I do think that saying good job and having the sticker chart are the same thing.
Yes.
Like
I
they're
agree.
not that much different. Good job, I do think is harder to let go of. And because it's harder to see, well, what could the possible harm be
Right.
of saying good job? Where stickers, we could say, well, kids, there's that visual reminder right there all the time that some kids are succeeding and some kids aren't. And we see the patterns and um, but when especially young children who are learning language and they're doing that from being in language and
Yes.
experiencing how language is used, it can have a bigger impact than is immediately sort of apparent to us because we use language differently and function
Yes.
differently
Yeah.
than they do. Yeah.
Last question.
Oh, I thought the hard one was the last one. Okay.
Oh, no.
I'm not satisfied with my answer to the hard question you just asked, but it gives
Yeah.
me a good thing to think about. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, which is leading to the last question.
Okay. Yeah.
People always want to know where to start, where to begin, how do you make a change?
Uh-huh.
And I think this sticker issue, is more than just stickers.
Yeah.
It's about, as you indicated and Em indicated, relationship building, how that happens. So if they're not going to use stickers, where would they begin to change? What would they have to, how would they start
Yeah.
that process?
Well, I would say one thing you can do there, I mean, there's of course that is like everything, it's dependent on the individual who's wanting to make the change, but a good starting place is because one, I don't think that a teacher, individual teacher, and this is probably going to upset somebody, but I don't think that a teacher becomes really dependent on a sticker chart without a quote unquote problem child. Like you don't really hang on to your sticker chart if everybody's doing pretty much okay all the time.
Right,
You
right.
really cling to it if there's a problem child and you're feeling sort of desperate and you don't know what to do with that child. So I would say a good first step is to um, who comes to mind when you think of the challenging child. Write that kid's name down and list as many positive things as you can, or list things that you really like about that child. And if that's hard work for you, then you need to spend time with that child with no expectations on your part of good or bad or complying or not complying. You need to figure out a way to just hang out with that kid on the playground when
Yeah.
everything's going well. And that will also help you with the next step, which is to think about which parts of the day is that kid not, quote unquote, again, a problem. What's happening during those parts of the day? Is there something that you could bring into the other parts of the day or adjust about the other parts of the day when he is challenging or she is challenging for you, to make it easier for all of you? So I think that would be my 2 next step recommendations for folks wanting to move away, or just, even if you just want to prove me wrong, try those 2 steps and tell me
Right.
how it works.
Right. Yes.
And if you
Yes.
still feel like the sticker chart's the best way, I don't know, we'll talk.
You,
You can find lots of other ways to be creative in your classroom without
yeah.
a decorative sticker chart.
I had to begin to think, do I only want compliant children?
Yeah.
And I think that's a part to start with, is that,
do I only like the easy ones?
To that child
Yeah.
versus a child who, quote, is not compliant?
Yeah.
And are they different?
Yeah. Yeah. Or the, easy ones.
Yes.
I used to do interviews when I was a director, and I'd say, tell me why you want to work here. And they'd say, well, I just really love kids. And
Right.
I would say, well, what about kids who hit? And they would be really,
Right.
really
Right.
have a problem answering that. So you're right. Yeah, they want compliance, and sometimes compliance is a hard word for adults to accept about themselves, they're really thinking about compliance or non-compliance. So thinking in terms of easy and difficult can be another way of thinking about that. But yeah, you're right. We just all feel like our lives would be easier if everyone just did what they were supposed to do. And and when there's a bump in the road, it's easy to blame that on the kid with 36 months of experience instead of the adult who's 51. For whatever reason, that's easier for us to do. So.
Yeah. It's interesting because I tend to go to children who are less compliant. Doesn't mean I don't.
They always end up being my
compliant. Yeah, they're the ones that think, oh my God, thank God, I finally got one that doesn't pay attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Statue of Liberty. I can't remember the poem on the Statue of Liberty, but we need one about children too. The bring me your non-compliant, your sassy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work on that. There's an idea in there somewhere. Yeah. Oh, well, now
that pretty much covers it for me. I mean,
thank you.
Yeah.
This was really fun. And I'm going to say it on air because I want everyone to give you this credit. Thank you for spending, an hour of your time listening to that podcast and then another hour talking to me. I appreciate it. But I always want to talk to you.
I do. Yes. I always say, I need to talk to Heather about this. After I read something, I'm thinking, what?
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm slowly taking over everybody's subconscious. Mike Huber the other day was like, I was reading something and I thought Heather would highlight this. So yay, this is fun. All right, well, let's wrap this one up. And thanks again, Dan. Thanks everybody for listening, and come back again for another episode. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care.